Hey everyone, it's George from Booming Business here, and I'm joined today with Harrison Dell from Cadena Legal, Australia's leading tax lawyer focusing on tech, blockchain, and digital assets. Welcome, Harrison. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, George. Pleasure to be here.
Always is a pleasure with you. Now, today's kind of cool. We've been working together for a number of years, and your legal firm, your law firm, has had some tremendous growth. And wanted to kind of unpack that journey, talk about together how we've made that work, obviously focus on how much of a great lawyer you are and the value you deliver for clients being the underpinning force behind that, and see how you've gone from where you were to where you are today, and then talk about the future to come.
Yeah, it sounds excellent. So we've been working together, I think, more than 2 years now. Yeah, look, the firm and our relationship are about the same age, and it was really that year before I started my firm that I clicked on the business development side about how to win business. That's one part about being a lawyer, and a lot of people think that's the most important part is win work, do work. But I very quickly knew that once you win the work, doing the work isn't just the only thing. You've got to do 8 different pieces of work at once. You've got to do all sorts of things. So it's actually got to be a business. And that was always my focus that me and you spoke about is I don't want to create self-employment here. I want to create a real business. And that means business structures and learning things that I didn't already know. Because I realized very early that a lot of law firms don't know how to run businesses. They just create their own work and they work very, very hard. But they don't actually create a business that can thrive without the owner at least some of the time. So since I started Cadena, which was February 2022, I've been working with you, George, which has been great to have that second set of ears and eyes on things to tell me when I needed to do things and when things are too early. And that's stuff like expanding the team, because win work, do work doesn't become easier when you just add more people.
No, it doesn't. I think that's a trap a lot of law firms find themselves in, and then it's a glass ceiling that they've just created for themselves where there's not quite enough work to push through it, and then too much work to spend time finding new work, and then you're stuck, right?
Exactly. And that's what it felt like. You know, the first few hires were lawyers, and that actually makes you busier because it's more things to do. There's more work to delegate, things to review, and everything's happening on the same timeline. So, you know, we built through that process and we built both people that add time back for me and take it away as long as the revenue generation was right. You know, from 2022 when we started, we doubled our revenue in 2023. Well, so no, we tripled our revenue in 2023, and then we doubled it again in 2024. It's looking like, and you know, pushing into the 7 figures now, very very healthily, which is really good for a legal practice. And we didn't have to burn our capital while we did it. This wasn't like, oh, well, let's invest all this cash so that we can grow. It's like, well, no, actually, we had profits and took profits while we grew. So there aren't many businesses where you can do that, and a law firm is one of them. As long as you do it right, because these aren't big, you know, you're not going to sell your law firm for $10-20 million really, but it can be an excellent cash flow vehicle, very high profit. You know, we were projecting much higher margins than we got this year, but that's because we have spent some of that cash. But we still have to.
And to be fair, like talking about margins, the average law firm does 20 to 30% margins. Yours have been consistently higher than that all the way through. So while it might have been slightly lower than we were hoping for, you've been reinvesting, as you were saying, a bunch of that money back into the business.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the classic model is like a third, a third, a third. You know, 1/3 for staff, 1/3 for OPEX and rent, and the other third's profit, and that's how you price everything. And I don't really think that's a great model because you're sort of pricing yourself backwards when really you just want to maximize that profit number. You don't care where the rest else is spent, as long as it reinforces that high profit sort of number. We can easily target 40-50%. And what we're looking at in 2025 is doubling our revenue again, keeping our costs largely the same. So our margin will grow from 30-35 to more like 55-60. And it's at this point where we're bringing on partners to get more time back so that we can put more of the right time into the business to grow it even further. And, we're not trying to make a pyramid scheme here, which makes it a very fun business to build, especially with coaching. It's we're trying to motivate our people. We don't want them to turn over. We actually never want them to leave. If they do leave, that's very sad. It means we've, usually done something wrong. Sometimes it means that they just need to move on for their own reasons. But the right people in the business, once we've identified them, retaining them, and money is a big factor. But we can make a lot of money. I can still be a very wealthy business owner and also share so much of the pie with the team that actually makes me even wealthier. And I think that's
Yeah,
where a lot of law firms get stuck is they go, well, I got paid nothing as a graduate, or this is what I got. It doesn't matter. Like if you've got the great team and it's a people business, then you've got to have some kind of way of sharing the pie, because they just won't participate in the pyramid scheme for 20 years like maybe some other people used to.
yeah, 100%. It's almost like the anti law firm model, right? Where typically it's like the Sopranos quote: "Money flows up, shit flows down," as they say. You built something very different,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
we'll talk about that in a second. Just to jump back a little bit, so when you start down this journey, 2022, from memory, it was just you at that point in time. You're starting to get some great traction on TikTok, right? You really embraced the idea of building up your profile. So when we kind of joined up, was, hey, I'm starting to get some good traction with this TikTok. I'm starting to get good referrals coming through. Where do we go from here? How do we build a model that is scalable? How do we build it so everybody wins? And more importantly, how do we not create that pinstripe prison concept where you're stuck being a lawyer dealing with clients all day, every day, right? You wanted to build as I like to call it, a profitable, scalable business that can work whether you're there or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. The look, like I hired very early in the business journey. Within the first month, I had two staff working for me, and one of them was relatively senior, the other one was quite junior, and they were quite busy from the get go. So that was obviously the foundation. The foundation of every law firm is, do we have enough work to do? But we focused very quickly on, well, how do we maximize that? And a big part of that was trust in the team. Was not every single email has to go through the partner. That also means that people are going to make mistakes, which is fine, because almost all mistakes of someone saying something in an email can basically be fixed. So we made this culture of a lot of self-responsibility, and we continue that sort of all the way through to today. When we do our weekly meetings, when we go through all the work that we need to do, is when it's in your bucket, you own that matter. And I make it very clear, if you need me to do something, you contact me. I'm not just going to know exactly what you're up to. I'm not responsible, you are. Really, I'm ultimately responsible, which is why I give staff guidance and support. But really, it's the framework for people to build great work practices that they enjoy doing it. I don't care if they're working from home or they're on the beach drinking mojitos or they're in the office, whatever works best for them. It really unlocks a lot of flexibility and a lot of appreciation, and the best work comes out of those staff.
And just to touch on that point, because I think some other lawyers get quite caught up on this, there's definitely a lot of opinions about it. Your team's remote almost completely. Until fairly recently, you really didn't have a centralized office, did you? You were in Sydney. A lot of the team, or all the team, were in Melbourne for a long, long time, right? How did you handle that?
You need to have the ability to come together, which it has its challenges when you're all very far apart. So when my team was Melbourne based and I was Sydney based, I was traveling down to Melbourne every month or two, and that's not ideal. But the level those staff are at is that they still needed my supervision, and then they need to have those touching bases, and then they need to have those relationships, which are very important internally. It's a lot of travel, which was fine. Now we've centralized our team mostly in Brisbane when I moved up here. And doesn't mean we're always in the office. It's still not always the office's best, but it's the ability to come together, which now we can do, once or twice a week. And some of the people work in the office more than that. For example, our graduates, I've said to them, I want you in the office, and there'll be at least one staff member in the office, so you can work through things in person, because that really is the best way for junior staff. Because that's what I was worried about, is bringing
and even
junior
just
staff.
on that point, to pull back, it was just you. Then you'd hired a senior associate sort of level person. Then you'd hired a grad or a junior. These days, we're 2 years later, right? Now the team's grown quite substantially. You're a team of 8, including you. Do you want us to run through the structure? Who's on the team and what kind of level are they?
Yeah, sure. So running top down, there's myself, and I run all the business operations generally, with my EA, as well as the tax team I'm responsible for, which is still the biggest team, because we've got a commercial law team as well. We added on, and that was a strategic acquisition, because there was so much commercial work coming out of the firm. Another firm we work with quite closely, they were having issues with business development, whereas we were just overflowing constantly work that we didn't even want. that we brought them into the fold. So we've got special counsel as well that heads up that area, moving towards a partnership model with them. They've just got the one paralegal at the moment, and they're building their practice very, very quickly. On the tax team, the structure is more vertical than usual for tax teams because we're investing in our graduates, which I'll go through later. But I've got a senior associate and associate, which have different levels of experience, different focus areas, and I push them towards being subject matter experts. So one, for example, is big focus on crypto and digital assets. The other one comes from a litigation background, but is coming into terms with all of the general domestic advisory and the international stuff, which really interests her. And the graduates work directly with them and also directly with me. It's not like I don't deal with those junior staff. In fact, there are some matters where they deal with me exclusively. And they go through a structured learning program so they can get those foundations. And I also expect that they're going to have their focus areas in due course, because it's building those subject matter experts so that we can have an even wider, flatter structure, because there is a lot of room for many types of tax advisory that they could almost all have their own tax practice if they really wanted to.
And just on that point there, I think some people might be asking, 2 years in practice or 3 years getting towards that mark now, 8 people and you've got graduates working with you, quite unusual. And just to take that step back and how we got to that point, I remember there was that stage where we needed to hire more tax lawyers.
Yeah.
Right. And like most practices out there, we're struggling to find good candidates. And we went through the process and we decided, well, if we can't find them, let's build them. Right. And that's where the graduate program came from. So now you've got graduates who you're putting through a structured process, as you mentioned.
Yep.
More importantly, you've delegated that to one of the team members.
Yes.
To really be driving and creating the content and the structure. You're overseeing it all. And I think just taking that notion back, because watching this, people are going to be thinking, how do you do all of this stuff? You're a lawyer and you're running the business and you're doing grads and you're doing marketing. And I think it comes a little bit back to what you said before. You got to generate work. You said do the work. I say create capacity in the firm. It's that balance. And I remember really early on saying to you, get on stages, like present more and make more videos. That's underneath all this, let's get you focused on what your strengths are and where the impact's going to come from and what's going to add value to the firm. We quickly realized doing client work certainly was not going to create the biggest impact moving forward. It's important, but getting you focused on the right things from the start has been the key to everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's the, like going back 3-4 years, I was an excellent producer of work. I could work through almost any tax issue with enough time. Even complex ones I could work through much quicker than necessary. And that was great. That was the value and the impact I had at that time. But that changed. And it changed into, well, now my biggest value and skill is in business development, translating complex things into simple things, and strategy. And the firm has been very much building towards me doing exclusively that as much as possible. Obviously, I'm still involved in all of the work, but I rely on people now to generate the first, second drafts to work through the issues. You need people that are skilled enough to do so. You mentioned difficulty hiring, and it wasn't because, there were so many candidates out there, we just couldn't find the perfect one. There were almost no candidates out there. Tax lawyers are very difficult to find, which is great in terms of industry growth and revenue for us, because it's a very small market with a very high demand, and that's not going to change. That's death and taxes for you. But when we need to reinforce our position in the market and add more capability, very difficult without cannibalizing another firm and making deals out of necessity. Or the alternative, and I think this is the cheaper and more effective way, is you build them yourself and you teach them the way that you want them to be taught. Because, I hired firms from top tier practices, from the ATO, from all over the place. And none of them ever had the perfect blend of skills that I would have wanted. They hadn't seen a whole bunch of work types that we do, particularly with international tax. It's very niche specialty, very high demand, very profitable. So instead of trying to find those people and pay them ludicrous amounts of money to move across, only for them to leave in 6 months if they're not quite a good fit, is we find that culture fit first. And we find someone that's teachable and we teach them. And if that takes 6-12 months, they're going to learn excellent skills. to be able to go back into the market if they do want to leave the firm at some point. That's fine. We appreciate, you don't work at one place forever. But it also means that we can replace them and we can add extra people when we need capacity, and we have 12-month timeline where we can see the firm's growing. We can add 5 graduates at a time and put them through the same learning program that we're building, so that we're going to have capable staff members. And then I can trust them too to get work done or to manage matters. And suddenly that $2 million fee ceiling that lawyers talk about doesn't really exist.
Doesn't exist. And
yeah,
that whole thing came from. Sorry, on that note, I think there'll be some questions we're talking through that. That framework about building the grads modeled on a process that I'd done with big coaching business in the past, right? Can't find the skills, so let's build the skills. I think a few of the key movements there are like, why hire 2 and not 1? Well, you hire 2 and ideally they both work out, but maybe only 1 will work out. So you've got a little bit of redundancy built in. 2, if we can get them profitable, at least covering their wages in 3 to 4 months, everything else from there on is cake, right? You can focus on the development and the growth and the molding. And I think you end up, as you were alluding to, with a much better, well-aligned team member that hopefully will stay. If they're going to leave, they'll leave. They'll probably want to come back when they've experienced what the real world is like. But it enables the model in a big way.
It does. And I think the really good context is it's been 6 to 8 weeks and they've already covered their salary.
Yeah.
And really, really the main cost isn't their salary. The cost is the time loss for me and senior staff that need to invest in them. That's the real investment. But 6 to 12 months of doing that for someone who's relatively capable and can then work on the broad model that we expect. And this is just sort of anecdotal, is you want junior lawyers to do about 70% of a matter and senior lawyers to only touch about 30%. That gives you a bit of, pyramid scalability. What I really want is 70% from the junior lawyer, 25% from the senior lawyer, and 5% from me. That's really what I would like it to be. And that 5%, that means I can actually attend to that as like, this is my work and what I need to do. I can deliver on that, and everyone has their assigned roles. And suddenly it's a business with defined roles of who does what, not just get work, get it out as fast as you can. We need revenue now. We've got predictable timelines for clients. We've got predictable amounts of wages that we need to pay and amount of revenue. It's relatively accurate now.
Yeah, I think the main point there, it's like you've got predictable team members with predictable workflows, with predictable budgets. So all the cash flow, all the growth modeling is really easy to do now, and it's all fleshed out for years to come. Obviously, it'll change as things happen and the goalposts will move, but for now, it's modeled out, right? You know exactly what's going to happen, and to add more revenue, you know how many different people you need and what area. It's quite predictable.
Yeah, and if I can predict that with 12 months sort of foresight and accuracy, I can know exactly how many new graduates I need every single year. And I don't think it's going to be more than a few each time, but it'll at least be 2, when we do a round. It might be 3, 4, 5. We can train them all at once and we can have pretty high performing staff members pretty soon.
Yeah, and I mean, even with that, being able to tie that back to revenue and therefore lead generation, knowing what activities are required to generate the leads, to generate the revenue, to facilitate the growth. I think knowing your numbers is the key driving force behind all that. I'm sure it gives you a ton of confidence to see if the input is X, the output's going to be Y, and it's highly predictable.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, a lot of our measures have been too effective, especially with our marketing things where, and going back to what you're saying before about, being on stage and making that content, like that's what brings in the work. What really happens is it takes a good 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. You get that quick sugar hit when you make stuff and you'll get those inquiries. But now the journey that the potential client goes on is they might be referred to me by somebody, and then they look me up and they can see the hours of content and they can see all these things that I've done. They know exactly how I work and know exactly how I interact with people and the values of the firm, really just from the way that we carry ourselves. And they come in, it's very willing buyer. And that's
bingo.
Great. We have.
I think we've certainly spoken about this before, and I know it comes up with other clients when they start doing cold marketing, i.e. they start to run AdWords or they're doing Facebook ads, or people aren't coming via referrals and they don't know who, as a lawyer, who you are. So they're
Yeah.
just comparing you to anybody else. And we've spoken about the importance of continuing that content. You've got to build up an audience. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way to do it. The point being is if people consume your content before they talk to you, you instantly are building up a lot of trust, credibility, and authority. I think we've always spoken about at least an hour. If they can consume or at least see that there's an hour's worth of content to consume,
Yep.
you're well ahead of the competition who don't have anything.
Yeah.
So I think actually on that note, a lot of lawyers are reluctant to post content or do videos. What are your thoughts on that?
It's true. There's a lot that are reluctant to do so, which means that the bar is very, very low in how if you want to stand out. You don't have to do videos, you don't have to do that stuff, but you do need to be a domain authority on something. And that's what we've focused on is, it's not tax law, it's crypto digital asset, it's domestic tax restructuring, it's international tax. And if clients don't want to buy one of those, they don't care what we have to say. And that's fine.
That's right.
But,
not wasting your time with people who can't or won't work with you.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't actually know what tax lawyers do. And frankly, it's very hard to conceptualize because not everything is a clear tax issue, but a lot of things are tax driven. And it's more, you know it when you see it. And if you don't, usually your accountant will. And people find these issues and they Google them, or they look on TikTok, or they look somewhere. They will usually find us somewhere there pretty easily. And
yeah, because it's not just the TikToks, to be fair. You've also doubled down quite a lot into SEO and writing blogs and content, being on other people's stages. So they're promoting their content and you're getting the views because of that and the authority.
A lot of cross-pollination with podcasts and articles and, co-marketing I do with clients, especially. The SEO is a very long work in progress. It's adding those domain authority on certain things. And it's been good, but it's certainly not been the main driver. What I've found to be the biggest driver is our SEO stuff is so specific that there's almost no competition. So we don't need to run Google AdWords. If people look up something so specific, the only article there is ours. And there are so many times when a client, we talk to a client and we say, look, it might be $50,000, $100,000 to sort out this, huge problem that you've got. They go, yeah, okay, that's a lot of money. And you go, yeah, either you don't have a choice or it's so high value and complex, that's what it needs to be. And they often go out and they look it up and they find our article about the same topic that we've already written, 6 months ago. And they really just go, these guys obviously understand what I need. And they very quickly come to terms with the fact that it's expensive. Everybody knows lawyers are expensive. Tax lawyers are not known for being cheap. But the thing we get to sell, and we're very lucky, is that we get to sell greed in that we can save people a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars, even on a small business.
They might pay, like you said, that $100,000, they might save $1 million or more in tax, right?
It's a very good investment. Whereas a lot of other lawyers sell risk and compliance and, not going to jail, those sorts of things. And that's a bit harder to sell. And there's more competition in those fields as well. But it's about those niche brand authorities. They don't look up best tax lawyer and go on the guide and say who's number one and pay him lots of money. That is not at all how it works.
No.
They go, who understands my problem? And we're a very junior law firm. We don't have 100 years of practice behind us. There's much bigger law firms and we win work from them when we quote even higher than they do. And it's not because of anything other than we understand the problem better and the clients can see that because they can go through so much content. They can find written stuff, they can find podcasts, they can find TikTok things. They generally like the way that we deal. And you'd think that'd be a younger clientele, but no, it's both. People want to like the lawyer that they work with.
I think so. And I think probably the thing we'll move on after this, but I think the thing that underpins all of the traction you're getting with your marketing really comes in. You mentioned before honing into the specific niche of the market that you are aiming at.
Yeah.
And then having very specific content that resonates with them. You're trying to be too general and try to capture as many people as you can. Ironically, it doesn't work. It's actually the opposite, right? I think you've well and truly proven and demonstrated with the traction that you've got that you really, really, really need to nail that messaging to the right market and that's where the magic happens.
Exactly. And I was telling this to another lawyer the other day is, you know, very few of my videos on TikTok especially get more than, say, 10, 20,000 views. Maybe less than 10% of them would. And they go, well, that must mean there's something wrong with the video. And I go, well, not really, because say 2,000 people watch it and 2% of people are ready to buy, then you've got a good pool of people there. You've got 40 people there who are willing to buy from you. Our average deal size is about 10 to 15,000. That's suddenly way too much work from one video. And it never works out that way specifically. But even if there's one or two from each video that we do, then suddenly we've got so many leads that we can't deal with it, which is the position that we're at now.
Yeah.
You don't want the viral videos. You don't want the broad, wide network, unless you're a broad, wide lawyer that does 1,000 different things. Even then, when, I've had those 500,000 view videos, that's great. That doesn't get me direct clients. That gets me more reputation, which I've then got to leverage with the correct video and the correct content that's going to hit whatever buyer.
Get it specific, ironically, right? Got to take that general video and make it specific.
Yeah. So there's a lot of lawyers out there, even ones that do make content, and they make it very general, and they get great views, way more followers than me. I'm not criticizing them for that. But in terms of converting it into dollars, I think the hyper-specific niche approach works so much better, because there are lawyers with 5, 10, 20 times as many followers as I do that don't make nearly as much revenue from their social media because they're not being niche enough.
Always laugh, and your audience is so specific and so dialed in that you can live stream yourself playing a video game and offer tax advice to people who are watching it with you, live streaming it, and generate clients straight from that, right? Because you're engaging them, you're talking with them in their space. And because the niche, that market knows exactly who you are, the problems that you solve, how that's tapped into theirs, you've got an instant connection.
Absolutely. And, I've got one of my biggest clients when I was streaming myself playing games, because he just came on and asked me questions about racehorses. And I remember I said to him, if you've got questions about racehorses, Matt, you should really be putting through an inquiry, and I should charge you money for this. So we did, and we did a whole lot of work together. So, and he's now a very good friend of mine as well. It's just about being where the people are, having reputation, and they know that you can solve X sorts of problems. And when the problem comes up, even if they're not buying now, then they'll find you. And there's people that have been following me for 2 or 3 years now, and then they're finally ready to buy something. And you can't get that with SEO. You can't get that with anything else. It's
really build the audience, generate leads, right? So build the audience, generate leads, convert the clients from there. Just so this doesn't go on forever, let's kind of just do a quick recap. Harrison, we started 2-3 years ago, just you getting into the space, really delving in TikTok and the lead generation. We started working together. We built out a sales process so that we could track every step along the way and increase those conversions from the leads that were coming through.
Yep.
Got you really presenting. So nailing that niche is what I call it, really dialing in, as we've been talking about, who you're targeting, what you're saying, what the value proposition is, and getting your face everywhere as much as we could, all over the place, getting you to focus on your strengths, knowing your numbers, so understanding exactly what's going on in the firm dollar for dollar, and you've always been tremendously good at that, building the right systems and processes. And then I think taking this to another level where we've extracted you one step further, where now you've got I would say, an absolute superstar EA who does a lot of the admin-y roles that I know you love to do so much.
Oh, yes.
But now we've opened up the capacity for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's one of the key ways to give yourself the time back. And it takes a level of sophistication in business to make that sort of decision and be the right one. And we probably made it, maybe 3 months a bit later than we should have, but we didn't want to rush that decision either. So no, we've got excellent administrative support where it's not, you don't want underqualified people for that. You want overqualified people for those roles, because they really take on all of those things that are not revenue generating for the business. And me being, hopefully 5% on every matter doesn't mean I've got all this time that I want to do admin. It means actually I've got more time to do 5% of a whole bunch more matters.
Mm.
And that administration should just be dealt with, chasing up clients for funds and trusts and checking when invoices haven't been paid and things like that. And those things all just take time, but really they take focus, because you can't, like a business owner, you've got a whole lot of hats and you've got to just delegate hats away. Otherwise, you can't grow. It's not possible. So adding in that support has been like one of the most important things that we've done.
Huge.
And that's what's driven, doubling our firm revenue in 2023 to 2024.
Yeah, because I think people say it's easier to double when you've just started, because yes, it is. Your revenue base is low, but to triple it and then double it again and be on track to double on that basis, you've really got to have those systems and those processes in place. Even before I think you hire an EA, they can come in and refine stuff and fill the gaps, but it's that 80-20, isn't it? You've got to really have those impactful processes that really only going to be 20% of all the processes are going to give you 80% of the impact. Having those defined so you can give it to the EA to take it and amplify from there. And I think what's been really good throughout most of the times whenever we talk about something, whether it be a recruitment process, one point you've been writing a book, whatever the thing is, there's always been a process I've been able to give you the skeleton or the framework from so that you can make it your own. I think that's also given us the ability to get a lot of traction very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's important for a lot of business owners to go, yes, their business is unique, but also it's not. It's, we're providing personal and business services, and it doesn't matter whether I'm providing massages in the mall or coaching services or accounting. That there's actually not that much difference business to business. There are some specifics that I need to know, but that's not why I come to you. I come to you for I want to run a great business. And it seems that almost no lawyer I've ever met runs a great business. They might run a big business, but then they're working 100 hours a week. And I'm just so inherently lazy. I never wanted to build towards that. I wanted to build towards, keeping it to 40 or less, but also make it big. And that's a well-run business where the founder can, remove themselves from it and do other things, which I'm doing now. I've got a whole range of other side sort of things that I get to do. If I didn't have those people in place, then I couldn't do it. I'd be working twice as much and making, about the same money, probably even less.
Yeah, I mean, your target for billables is for yourself 2 to 3 hours per day, right? That enables you to focus on these other opportunities and focus on growth and running the firm as a business. So think like Headliners. We'll wrap it up from here. Headliners, we're really saying 3 years. It's pushing towards 10 times growth, right? In 3 years,
it's
enabled you to have
compared to 2025. It'll be a 10x growth in that one, and it'll be keeping the profit margins pretty similar as well throughout that time.
Hugely profitable all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
Got a team of 8, more to come.
More to come. But we don't want a big team. We want a profitable team. No. We'll probably limit it to 15. And if we go further than that, that'll be a big decision that we make in business. But we want to keep it small and, quality culture, and we provide high quality services that charge out very high with clients that are happy to pay because it gives them a lot of value.
Yeah, big time. And I think importantly with that team of 8, you've got what I'd say a fairly unique model of rewarding and enticing those teams where they want to stay and they want to grow with you, because they're going to be rewarded all the way through without the traditional pathway to partner and having to wait until 20 years into their career. They're getting hugely rewarded all the way through. I think your model is quite awesome from that regards. And it's scalable. To add more team members is not necessarily recruiting.
Yes. Recruitment's expensive.
Yeah.
25% of the salary you have to pay is, just not feasible to pay every single time you need someone. Sometimes it's the right decision.
Bingo.
But in the long term, you don't want to be paying that 3, 4, 5 times a year. You just don't.
No, not at all. Time for money, but yes, it becomes a question to really get clear on.
Exactly.
And then you've got a bunch of time back, not that you're not busy anymore, but you've got time to focus on other opportunities that come your way because of the clients and the referrals and the networks that you get to play in as your business has grown and because of the profile that you've been building for yourself. So I'd say absolutely tremendous traction, momentum, and results, Harrison, from I wouldn't say a start. What's that word I'm looking for? Starting from the scratch because you had momentum, but we've really been able to amplify that and push in the right direction. and I'm super excited to see where this all ends up, because the sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, we can double it, and I don't see why we can't just keep doubling it again. I'm sure there'll be a reason why at some point. Maybe I think it's going to be that we don't want to, because
It'll get
once
to
we
that
can,
point. Like,
yeah,
what's the exit?
we can reward everybody well. I can have a whole lot of time back. And you said it before, is, we get really great networks in what we do. We see a lot of very great deal flow. One of the most valuable things we have in the firm is actually the deal flow, more so than the direct revenue. We can actually convert that into much higher revenue products later, whether that be through venture capital, angel investing, all sorts of things. We get much more opportunity, and that's what we need to leverage as sort of, that's the 10, 20 horizon stuff. And the day-to-day stuff, once it's taken care of, and it's getting to that point, every single day it gets a bit closer, then we can start to focus on that, and that can help us reward our people even more, and we can be a very wealthy group, hopefully.
There you go. That, more importantly, delivers great services and value to your clients. I think that's still the thing that underpins everything.
It is.
That the whole business is built on. It's not a machine just to extract money. It's delivering real, tangible value for the clients first and foremost, and been a testament to that.
It's bespoke consulting at the end of it. And scaling a bespoke consulting business is very difficult. Requires a lot of trust, a lot of learning, just the right people in the right places. But when you do that, if you're not making 50% margins, you're doing something wrong.
100%. So thinking back to yourself at the start, anyone who's listening that's in a similar situation or is kind of stuck along the way somewhere, what would be the biggest point of advice that you would give them?
The biggest point of advice, and I've given this to lawyers many times in the past, is a law firm can either be self-employment or it can be a business. And you can only pick that with how you run it. And almost every law firm I've seen, it's self-employment. And if you want to move towards being a business, you've got to go and learn how businesses are run. And coaching is a big part of that. But that doesn't solve all the problems. You've got to actually do the things you talk about. You've got to understand your numbers. You've got to understand, where does the work come from? Where does the work end? How can I systemize some of these things? Which doesn't mean you take the thought out of it. It doesn't mean you put in, VAs and AI. It just means people have the right tools and processes to actually solve problems. Because if they can solve the problem for you, that's revenue in the bank. And then you can go get the next one. And then suddenly you've got a business where you win sales, you convert, you pay people, and there's plenty of cream at the end, and everybody's happy. But you can't do that in self-employment. You can just be very busy.
No. Well, and on that note, to finish on, can you do everything all at once?
Yes, when it's small. When it's medium size, you can't. When it's large size, you definitely can't. You're going to start letting people down. You're going to start getting all sorts of problems. And if you're going to move towards that like an actual business, then you need to start anticipating what those fires are, what those pain points are going to be, a little bit earlier than when they come, so that you can put people in those positions, or you can adjust how your business runs. The solution isn't always people. Sometimes it's not doing something. And
I think there's a whole other
in the trajectory.
Sorry, go for it. Yeah, I think there's a whole other thing to unpack. The key to this, I think, is one and done. When you're small, you can do everything. You get busy. Do one thing at a time to completion, then move to the next one, then to the next one, rather than have 5 initiatives or projects open that you're trying to progress. Getting them all to 20%, rather do one and done and move on, and then you'll get them all to 100% and get big momentum along the way, especially as you get bigger. I think let's leave it at that point, Harrison, for today. We can continue talking for hours, and I'm sure people would want to see that maybe for another time. For today, thank you so much for being honest, sharing your journey, sharing those lessons. It's been a pleasure working with you throughout the process, and looking forward to what's to come. As always, thank you very much.
Thanks, George. Looking forward to it too.